How could a pioneer of baseball be lost to history? His innovations are so commonplace, we take them for granted today. Here is the baseball legend you may never have heard of. The Chicago Cubs have a long history of losing, so it's odd one of the most successful people in the franchise is largely forgotten. In 8 full seasons, he wins 4 pennants, 2 World Series titles, and never finishes below 3rd place. He'll never be in a gallery with Ernie Banks or Billy Williams. Charles Murphy is an owner.
I think of him as big personality, extroverted, friendly, and really interested in other people.
He's the George Steinbrenner of the early 20th century, an analogy that reveals a colorful character and a wild ride. Charles Murphy's father, Patrick, settles in Wilmington, Ohio, and initially finds success as a laborer, but then falls on hard times and becomes a hard-drinking, abusive man. This is when, at the age of 15, his son Charles learns to spin a good tale.
From a young age, he knew he had to speak to his father in a certain way so as to prevent his temper from emerging.
Jason Cannon is the author of Murphy's biography. Murphy's skillful storytelling leads to a journalism career. He's the crime reporter at the Cincinnati Enquirer in 1892. A big baseball fan, he becomes the sports editor and does something novel in 1902. He prints off-season news, rumors, and gossip.
And he realizes that baseball can be 12 months out of the year in terms of storytelling, and he loved doing that.
He gets to know baseball's insiders like John Brush, who offers him a job with the New York Giants. And in 1905, Murphy becomes baseball's first PR man.
And so they would promote the team in new and interesting ways beyond the wins and losses or the product on the field.
Murphy gets a tip that the Chicago Cubs are for sale. He turns to an old friend to become his financial partner, newspaper publisher Charles Taft, brother of future President William Howard Taft. Sale price? The equivalent of about $3 million in today's money. Murphy rebuilds the Cubs, acquiring new stars like outfielder Jimmy Sheckard.
The baseball world couldn't believe it.
They dominate in 07 and sweep the Tigers in the World Series. "1908 sees a World Series rematch between the Cubs and Tigers, but scandal rocks the Cubs front office.
The fans can't buy tickets to the games. They line up outside of the stores to purchase the tickets. They're not available. No one can figure out where they are. And then all of a sudden, scalpers have them. And fans are upset by this, and understandably so.
The Cubs beat the Tigers in 5 games, but angry fans boycott and attendance is down.
As a consequence, the payout to the players shrinks significantly. So you have a couple of PR issues for Murphy here. Number one, his fan base is very upset with him. They can't get tickets at face value prices. And then you have the clubhouse is irritated because they watch what's going on and they know, regardless of the outcome of the series, this is eating into our cut of the gate, and these things stack up against him pretty quickly.
Murphy develops a powerful enemy, Ban Johnson of the American League. Both had been writers, and Ban Johnson doesn't appreciate Murphy's flair for gossip.
Murphy viewed it as all news is good news. This is PR. Ban didn't agree, and they butted heads, and that was reason number one why I think he became enemy, because the other owners didn't want to defy Johnson.
One bright spot, weeks after the World Series win, William Howard Taft wins the presidential election and attends several Cubs games over the years.
When you think about the development of the relationship between organized baseball and the White House, it really started with Murphy and the Tafts. President Roosevelt was not a fan of baseball. He made that very clear. So as a result, when President Taft becomes the nominee, all of a sudden baseball has a huge fan on the presidential election stage, if you will.
But Murphy's tirades and ticket scandals alienate owners and star players. He becomes arguably the most hated man in baseball.
I think it became part of the narrative that Murphy caused more problems than he solved, but it all kind of collapsed at once for him.
Cubs partner Charles Taft buys him out. Murphy's record after 8 full seasons, 4 pennants, 2 World Series titles, and never finishes below 3rd place. But his reputation is ruined. Murphy has a plan to restore it by leaving Chicago and heading home. As Murphy and Charles Taft's wife share a love of theater, Murphy returns home to Wilmington, Ohio to build a theater that still stands today.
He was trying to reclaim his family name. Building the theater allowed the Murphy name to be associated with something very positive. And the other thing it did is it was a gigantic thank you to the small town that had raised him. So it was a way to bring the big city lights to his small town, and he was very proud of it.
Jason Cannon's book is called Charlie Murphy, the Iconoclastic Showman Behind the Chicago Cubs.